One of my fondest memories growing up of video games was actually an arcade memory. I didn't go to the arcade a lot as a kid, but whenever we'd go to the mall had a local arcade in there, so I always spent as much time as possible, like, not shopping for clothes, just playing video games in there. I remember going to the mall with my parents, and I went to the arcade and found a game called House of the Dead. Now, I was completely unfamiliar with this game. It was a light gun game, which is a game that basically simulates shooting stuff in real time. Yes, you have to explain what a light gun game is in 2022 because there are kids who don't know of the genre. And I was just really drawn to this game because of the horror aesthetic. Most light gun games weren't quite like this. Sure, they might have dabbled in some more darker themes, but as far as like a full-on horror game that was a first-person light gun shooter, you never really saw this. I remember I was playing the game and this older Asian kid, probably like 17, 18 years old, had a little earring, probably had like a JDM, nice Honda outside of the building, was like, "Can I play with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude, sure." And so he actually was like my sensei. He taught me about the game. He taught me how to hold the gun. He taught me how to tap the gun, sort of like a paintball gun, in order to get a faster shot. And I don't know, something about that experience was just really cool for me because it kind of was one of my first instances of video games bringing together like everyone. Now, of course, House of the Dead ended up coming out on the Sega Saturn. It was okay, I guess, you know, definitely didn't capture the arcade experience quite like it should have. The graphics on it were pretty abysmal. So when House of the Dead Remake was announced for the Nintendo Switch, I was like, thank God. Thank the Lord Jesus Christ that this is coming out on my Nintendo Switch because I need to play this game. I cannot wait for this game. Of course, the game was then given a release date of April 7th, and Forever Entertainment asked me if I wanted to check out a review copy of the game, and I was like, hell yes. Hell yes, hell yes, hell yes. So today we're taking a look at House of the Dead Remake for the Nintendo Switch. You know, it's probably going to be leaning a bit more into fandom. I'm not going to be the most critical of this game because of my attachment with it, my love of the game and the franchise, but I really think House of the Dead Remake on the Nintendo Switch proves one major thing. We need more light gun shooters on the Switch. So what's this game all about, and is it a game you should check out? Let's just jump right into it. So the story of the game kind of reminds a lot of people of the original Resident Evil story. You have a crazy doctor who goes insane. Some agents go up in there to stop him, so on and so forth. There's zombies and monstrous creatures all over the place. Takes place in a mansion that's pretty much extended. It's more like a compound, as you see in some of the later levels of the game. But you don't really play the game for the story. It's more of how the story is just sort of the catalyst to sort of why everything is happening, why these creatures are out there. And then once you start to play the game, you realize it's a lot like a light gun Resident Evil game. Of course, there have been light gun Resident Evil games, but that's what really stuck with a lot of people when that game came out because of the zombie stuff. You got to remember, back in the late 90s, zombies were still fresh. It was an untapped market. It was an untapped genre of games, these more horror-orientated games. And so basically you go throughout the levels and you're shooting enemies. Now, what's cool about this game is there's a ton of different paths that you can go down. And the way you can end up going down these paths is basically by helping the scientists. There's a bunch of scientists that are stuck in this area that you have to save. The more scientists you save, the more points you get. Sometimes they'll give you life packs. Sometimes they'll give you key cards to access different areas and different paths. Once you play the game and you go through the game, you're not going to see the whole game because there's so many branching side paths. It's literally impossible to see everything in your first playthrough. So that really ups the replay value of this game. Now, of course, the one thing that I was very interested in, and I think a lot of people were interested in, is how the hell are you going to control this game? There have been some smaller sort of light gun games on the eShop. I actually played one. It was like a Western themed game. It worked okay, but this game was going to live and die essentially by the controls because that was really the most important thing because, you know, you don't have a traditional gun to sort of holster it like you did on other platforms. Now, of course, you can use analog sticks. It works pretty well. It actually works really well in handheld mode, which the game looks just great on the OLED screen, by the way. But you don't really want to play this game like that. You want to play this game to sort of simulate a light gun. So basically, you can do a single Joy-Con. It uses the gyroscope and the IR sensor in the Joy-Con in order to translate into a light gun-like shooter. You can recalibrate the gun at any time by pressing a button. You reload by pressing the B button, and it works well. You kind of have to adjust a few things in order to get the feeling down. You kind of have to adjust, you know, the sensitivity, the dead zones and stuff like that. But once you get what you're comfortable with, I think it's a really well done experience. You essentially just hold it out there, sort of like a light gun would be. And to me, this really proves one thing. Developers, you know, a company, a third-party company needs to come along and really make a gun. It could even be specifically for this game, just something, a 3D printed model or something, because it really would make for a lot of fun with that. It's still great the way it is. I'm very surprised with how well the controls actually managed to work, considering, you know, back on things like the PlayStation Move and the Wii, we had sensor bars and things like that. It didn't really make sense for light gun games. Of course, the whole crux of a light gun game is based on a CRT television because it's light that's emanating from where you are shooting. So I think they did a really good job with the controls. Yes, it's sometimes you need to recalibrate it, but since they mapped it to a button, I believe it's the Y button that you use to recalibrate, it definitely makes for a smoother experience than I thought it was going to be. Now, content-wise, there's, like I said, there's a bunch of content in this game. There's actually added in content as well, which I think is really cool. There's a whole bestiary thing where you can look at the different monsters you've come across and these zombie creatures in this world, learn about their weak points, and just see like really well done 3D character models of them. There's achievements in the game as well, doing certain things, beating levels in a certain amount of time, saving all the scientists will unlock achievements. There's end game stuff as well that you can unlock, different guns, different sorts of stuff. I won't ruin some of the fun stuff for you guys, but there's a lot of reason to keep playing the game. And even beyond just the main game, they've actually added in a new mode called the Horde mode. Essentially what this is like the game plus a million more zombies. Like your screen is filled up with zombies. I'm just showing you with the handgun right now, which you can't really play Horde mode with the handgun to make it work, but I'm just showing you what it looks like so you can sort of get a taste for it. But you do get some different weaponry to sort of make this a more unique experience. But I like this, you know, this was something that didn't necessarily need to be added into the game. You know, I think the core game itself would have been fine, but the little things like the achievements, the bestiary, and of course this new Horde mode really sort of open up the game and give you a lot of bang for your buck. Now, of course, we have to talk about the performance of the game. And if you're unfamiliar with the original House of the Dead, the voice acting is supposed to be bad. If the voice acting had been good in this game, I would have been disgusted. I would have been disgusted because that was the charm of the original House of the Dead. That was the charm of the original Resident Evil. You know, the voice acting in video games at that time was absolutely abysmal because they were just, you know, getting porn stars and people off the street in order to do these voices. So they definitely have the campiness of those original voices, some reworked tunes as well, real rocking stuff, really good stuff. But I would say the graphics are a very interesting thing about this game because actually there's two modes in this game. There's a performance mode and then like a mode that emphasizes graphics. Now in that mode, the graphics mode, it's basically like 30 to 45 frames per second, pretty consistent throughout. And then performance mode is up to 60 frames per second. For me personally, I play on performance mode. Essentially what graphics mode does is make some of the textures look better, make some of the lighting a lot more detailed, but I just would rather focus on the performance side of things. And for me, performance mode looks great. That's what you're seeing in most of this. I'm going to have a little thing that's sort of a comparison of switching from performance to graphics mode so you can see that it is better. But for me, the performance mode was the winner. That's what I wanted out of this game, was the performance aspect of it. Now in Horde mode, you'll probably not want to use the graphics mode because there's so many characters on screen that things can slow down a bit more. So that's where the performance mode really goes into impact. All right, so I've been gushing over this game for quite a while now. What do I not like about it? Is there anything that I don't like about it? I mean, not really. Like, I would love, and this isn't even a problem of the game itself, I would love for someone to come along, like I said, and make a light gun, because I think it would be a much more fun experience. It's already super fun, but I think having like a proper gun just to hold in your hand to use, and like you could do it too, because you're shooting with this, you're reloading with B, and you're making to readjust the gyroscope, you're hitting it with Y. So I feel like you can do something to holster this as a gun, not that crappy shotgun thing that's for some of the other games. A handgun. Beyond that though, you know, it's a light gun game. It's going to have somewhat limited appeal to people. You know, there's a whole generation of people who don't know about light gun games. Of course, the main game itself isn't the longest game in the world, but there is a lot of replay value with the game. Sometimes the game does hiccup even in performance mode from time to time, but I don't care. Like, I don't care. I don't care if every major media outlet gives this game like a 2 or a 1, because they're wrong. They're looking at it, you know, as a game that it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a fun light gun experience. It's supposed to bring you back to a time when light gun games were awesome. You know, they were the bee's knees. They were what everyone was talking about. And I think this game does a great job at encapsulating that sort of period of time, but it also makes it accessible to the modern era. There's multiple difficulty modes. There's multiple different ways to control the game to make it comfortable for you. And it's just a game that needs to be experienced. You know, if you're a fan of horror games and you're a fan, you know, of the first Resident Evil and that campiness about it, what if that game was just on crack and you were just waving down through, you know, waves of enemies, mowing them down and blasting them away? I've just been having so much fun with this game. Like, it really brings me back to, you know, 20 plus years ago, to that little RGT who also didn't have a mustache in the arcade, and playing that game and just, you know, really remembering it and really having so much fun with it. I've already picked up the physical edition from Amazon. I've already ordered the deluxe editions of this game, and you know, it's a lot of fun. And I think that's something that we sort of lose sight of in video games. We're always looking at the technical stuff. We're looking at the narrative of the game. Sometimes a game is just going to be fun. Sometimes a game is just going to be exactly what it sets out to be. You know, just a hokey, over the top game where you're smiling and you're having fun and you're having a good time doing it, because there's a lot of replay value in how you experience this game. So those are my thoughts on House of the Dead Remake. I know this wasn't very objective, but like I said, it wasn't going to be. Like, unless they just completely screwed the pooch on this, unless they made it so like the game controlled like ass and it was like 5 frames per second, I was probably going to like the game. But I definitely love it, and I definitely can't wait to get all the stupid, you know, extra stuff and do all the achievements and get all the freaking collectibles in the game, and of course the collectible editions of this game, because this is really cool, man. It's just really cool. So let me know in the comment section down below if you plan on picking up this game, because I mean, you probably should if you're, you know, kind of an older gamer and you like these sort of games, or even if you're a younger gamer, you know, you've never really experienced light gun games. I think you'll have a lot of fun with this game. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share, all that good stuff. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next video. Later.